Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Setup, Loading Your Agreements and Services for Use with the HomeGauge Dashboard. My name is Bethany, and I'll be doing most of the talking today. Normally, we have another person with us who answers questions, but he's actually out sick today, so go easy on me. We're going to have lots of question and answer periods throughout the webinar, and I'll get everybody's questions answered during that time. You won't have anybody extra just chatting back and forth today, but we will do our very best to make sure that you don't leave without having all of your questions answered. We'll also be having another webinar at 3 o'clock that's actually going to go out over using the appointments feature, public appointment scheduling, things like that. So I'm going to post a link for that into the chat area of your webinar program. If you want to sign up and attend that, that happens at 3 p.m. and we'll be getting a little more in depth with appointments at that point. So just so you guys have it. We've also got links handout that we've uploaded under the handouts section of your webinar toolbar. It's just a little PDF with some helpful links that you might find you need to remember after the webinar. So make sure you grab that too. If you have any questions as we go, please feel free to go ahead and type them into the questions area of your webinar toolbar. As I said, I am on my own today, but I will do my very best to stop frequently and get everybody's questions answered. Okay? So let's just dive right in. We're going to start today with loading our agreement. So for you guys that are following along with me, you want to be logged into your HomeGauge dashboard. So just go to homegauge.com, enter your username and password. You don't have to be following along, but helpful for the guys that want to. The thing we're going to start with is we're going to actually load the agreement from the software. So you guys that have been with us for a very long time probably already have your pre-inspection agreements in your actual HomeGauge software. We're going to pull that from the software right into the dashboard so that you don't have to retype or anything crazy like that. So that's where we'll start. Once you're logged into your dashboard, I want you to look for your main menu on the left-hand side. You're looking for appointments. That's where all this good stuff lives. And then once you're in the appointments submenu, you're looking for agreement templates. That's this little link here on the left. So here's agreement templates. And by the way, if anybody has any trouble hearing me or seeing the screen, anything pops up, please do go ahead and put that in the chat or in the question area as well. Since I'm on my own, I don't have as many checks and balances today. When you get into your edit agreements area, you're going to notice, if you've not done this before, that there's not really anything here. You'll probably see our agreement. You have to sign off on our agreement before you can use our online click agreement process. So if you guys are in there and you're seeing that you need to sign something, that's what that is. We encourage you to read through that and hit I agree. Once you do that, this is what you'll see. You'll just see the edit agreements page and you'll have a button that says create a new agreement. If you already have agreements, your create a new agreement button will be in the upper right, but you'll still have it. So we're going to start with pulling in from the software. So we'll just hit create a new agreement. We'll hit this handy little pop-up here on our screen. You can see that there are 3 different ways to do this. We can start from scratch under create a new agreement up top. We can use one of the sample agreements. We give you guys the ASHI sample, the InterNACHI sample agreement, and also just a generic HomeGauge standard agreement that you could start from if you wanted to. If you do use that stuff, obviously we want you to make sure that it conforms to the laws in your state. We recommend taking it to a lawyer that's familiar with that and making sure that everything's good to go there before you use it in a real world setting. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to import from the HomeGauge software. So just choose that option, and you'll notice it gives you some instructions right below the title here, along with a file path. So here's our file path. I'm going to show you that in this computer so that you'll kind of see it and it'll make a little more sense for you guys that aren't maybe as used to your computer as some of you are. So what we're going to do to find our agreement file in our software is we're going to choose File, and it's going to pull up a file explorer. Your HomeGauge data folder, 95% of you have your HomeGauge data folder under Documents, and then HomeGauge, and then you have lots of folders inside HomeGauge. Most of you have it living under Documents. Some of you that might be running maybe on a Mac with Parallels or VMware, something like that, could have your HomeGauge data folder directly on your C drive. So you'll know if you're one of those people, and you'll be able to go directly to it, I'm sure. But if you're not seeing it under Documents, check your C drive. That's where support tends to put it if you're having any kind of a problem with your directory. So Documents, HomeGauge, and once you're into HomeGauge, you're looking for a folder that's called HTML5. Just going to open that up. And then if you have had your software default loading your pre-inspection agreement, in other words, you never have to go attach it or go find it, it's always just there, then you're looking for a file that's titled disclaim. So you'll have to scroll down until you find that, and you want the one that says .html. Don't take one of these fun little backup files. Those are just previous versions of your agreement. If you are used to attaching an agreement in HomeGauge under the Miscellaneous tab, then you'll know the title of that agreement document. It probably still lives here under HTML. If it's functioning with our software and you're using merge fields, all that good stuff, that tends to be where it ends up. So you'll still find it here. You just may find it under a different name. For the majority of you, you're looking for disclaim.html. Once you find it in the list, just hit open, and that'll load it into our little handy import tool here. And then you're going to just hit create agreement down here in the bottom right. Once you do that, you'll see the page kind of reloads and all of your agreement text starts showing up. So you'll notice right off that you probably want to give it a new name. None of your customers want to see a document titled disclaim.html. That's not going to make sense. So give it something like pre-inspection agreement or whatever you want to call it. And then you can come down here and you can kind of look through your text, make sure everything looks correct. You can modify this if you'd like. You'll notice that you have several merge fields. All of these little guys that start with the $sign and they have some wording in brackets, those are merge fields that are pulling information from other areas of your dashboard. In this case, it's pulling in your logo. But there are other merge fields. Here's one for the address of the property. Here's one for your services total, so you can give them an invoice amount. They come from all over. So if you see those, try not to break that little string. You don't want a broken merge field. It won't look right. And we'll look at pulling in some different merge fields a little bit later. We're going to create a few agreements before all is said and done. I'm going to show you every way. So this is how you would pull in your agreement from the software. You'll notice a few things here. You can associate your agreement with your services if you already have them loaded. Most of you, if you're in this webinar, are not going to have them loaded. We're going to do that next. But if you do already have them and you're just pulling them in and maybe you're here for a refresher, if you hit this little button, all of your services will come up in the middle here and you'll be able to choose which services you should associate with this agreement. The reason you can do that is because you can actually distribute more than one agreement at a time from the appointments feature. So lots of people have a different addendum for radon, mold testing. There's a different commercial agreement as opposed to residential, stuff like that. We want you to be able to kind of double check yourself. So if you have a radon inspection service and you have a radon agreement, we want you guys to be able to tie that together so that when you pick your service, your agreement comes in automatically. You don't have to think about it. And I'll show you how you can do that from the services side as well for those of you that are following along and haven't gotten everything in yet. So definitely some little buttons to look at. We're going to come back to this, but here's a link that'll show you replacement fields. You can preview what your agreement's actually going to look like. We just fill in just some random information so that you can see the agreement actually filled in. You've also got a way to edit the little note that comes up on the dashboard for your customer right before they get to the agreement signature area that says, hey, you need to sign this. If you don't want to sign it online, you need to call me. One way or the other, sign this thing, right? So you can edit the text that goes into that note. You can also edit the notification templates. That's the email that goes out that says, hey, I scheduled an appointment for you. I need you to go ahead and sign this agreement online. And by the way, you owe me this much money. You can change all of that stuff around. So lots of different little options. But when you're done editing and kind of making sure everything is right and you've given it a new name, just hit Save Agreement Changes, and that'll save the changes that you've made. So That's pulling an agreement from your software. And just so you guys know, you can do this multiple times. If you already have lots of different alternate agreements kind of set up in your software and you're used to going through the rigmarole of going into miscellaneous and choosing the ones that are the one that's appropriate for this particular job, you can load all of that stuff in here from your software. You don't have to start over or anything like that. Just keep hitting create a new agreement until you're done. Okay, I'm going to also show you how to pull in a sample agreement. We're also going to look at the pull it starting from scratch before we move forward, but I'm going to pause just real briefly and make sure we don't have any questions on this particular aspect of pulling in your agreement from the software. So we're going to take just a brief hold and see if we've got any questions. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions yet, so let's just keep on trucking. What we're going to do next is we're going to pull in a whole different agreement. This time we're going to use a sample just to see what that looks like for you guys that maybe don't have all this stuff set up in your software yet. So if you wanted to pull in and use one of our samples, you could hit create a new agreement. And then you're just going to choose the middle option, start from a sample. You need to decide, do you want the standard HomeGauge agreement, the ASHI agreement, or the InterNACHI agreement? It's up to you what you choose. I don't want to pick a side, so I'm going to pick HomeGauge. And then just choose create agreement. That'll just pull a sample right in for you. Again, you're going to want to edit some of this stuff, so you can change your agreement name. Maybe we'll pretend this one's our commercial agreement, right? And you can come down here and you can change all of this text. You're obviously going to want to state your state name. So that's going to be important to change if you use this particular agreement. You might want to add some more text in here, change some things around. That's up to you. You'll notice again you have all these merge fields. You don't want to break these. And you can change them. Again, you've got a replacements link, and we're going to open that up here in just a moment. I'm going to pull in one more agreement. We're going to call it our radon, just so you guys can see it a little bit later on. Again, associate with services if you already have your services. We'll just save our changes. The third way to pull in an agreement is to start from scratch. I've never used this program before. I don't have anything ready. I'm just going to type it up. You can do that. I would encourage you guys that have never used a program before, that maybe just don't have an agreement loaded in your software, if you have it in a Word document, a PDF, some sort of text file, has your agreement document wording, please send it to us. We are happy to put it into HTML for you, load it into your dashboard, send it back to you with step-by-step instructions on where to save it so it shows up in your software. We will make this process as easy as we possibly can for you if you send it to us. You can send those agreements to support@homegauge.com. So again, support@homegauge.com. If you already have agreement text, but it's not in your software, it's not in your dashboard, please do send it to us. We're more than happy to make this easier on you guys. Okay, but just for fun, let's start from scratch. And you'll see when you choose create a new agreement that you have to give it a name. So we're going to call this one radon. And we'll hit create. And you don't actually come in with a lot to start with when you do it this way. We want you to replace all of this stuff. So we give you some just basic examples of what a merge field looks like, but we want you to take this out and put your own text here. Just so you guys have looked at the replacement values, when you click this little link down here that says replacements in the lower right, you're going to get a whole new tab with a full list of all of the merge fields that you can use in your agreement template. So you can look through this whole thing. There's lots of different stuff floating around in here. We normally, with samples, stuff like that, will start you off at least with, hey, pull in my logo. Hey, we need our customer name here. But you can pull in billing addresses, inspection dates, times, the property address, pet instructions. You can change all kinds of stuff if you want to. You can even have your service items pull in so that when they get that notification email that, hey, you've got an agreement to sign, and they get in there to sign it, they can actually look at the services you've got set up for them and all of that stuff if you want. We've got services simple. That's just your services title and a price. You can add services full. That's your title and the description area, and you'll see that here in a moment, and the price. All kinds of different stuff. You can have it not list the price. Services info doesn't list a price but does list a description. So I'd encourage you guys to look through this list, see what's available to you, see what you might want to use. You'll see your logo showing up here. I've loaded the HomeGauge logo for this particular example, but we do our best to try to brand everything with your logo, not ours. So you'll see all of that when you get into the replacements area. Some other things you might not know about. You've got just a basic word editor here. So if you wanted to make things bold or underlined, if you wanted to provide a hyperlink, if you wanted to use bullet points, maybe you're centering your text, all of this stuff that you're used to seeing maybe in a Word program, you also have here. So you can take advantage of all of that. You can highlight whole words. You can type in different colors. Maybe you've got something you really want them to notice that you said. You could put that in red if you want to. You can even add a link here. So if I wanted to add a link, I would get my link text. So best way to do that, guys, is to go to your website location and then just copy the address bar up top, right? Because then you know you've got it typed correctly. So I could type something like click here. When I highlight that and I use this nice little globe icon with a chain, it'll let me enter my text. So there's my web address. And now I have a link. So you can do that. You can just put the web address if you want to. I think it looks a little bit better if you try to turn it into a kind of a professional looking link, but it's really up to you. Again, we've got lots of bullet points that you can use. Different stuff. You've got a copy paste function up here. For you guys that are a little bit more nerdy and you want to look at the background HTML coding, you can hit source. It'll show you all of that stuff. If you like to type that way, you can. And here you have another preview that just gives you the same thing. If you want to look at what you've been typing and working on, you can hit preview with the little icon up here. Looks like a piece of paper with a magnifying glass, or with the link at the bottom right. They both take you to the same spot. So play around with that. You can do a lot with it. You can certainly load multiples, and you can have an agreement for every situation if you want. Some guys just have one, some guys have tons. So we try to accommodate that for you. So I'm going to just briefly pause, see if we have any questions about what we've already been talking about. And then if you'd like, we're going to kind of keep on going and we'll move into loading in your inspection services. So we'll take a brief pause and make sure that we don't have any questions about how to load our agreements so far. All right, looks like we're still good to go here on questions, so we'll keep going. Anybody that still does have questions and maybe you just didn't get it in there fast enough, we'll pause at the end and we'll have kind of a longer question and answer period for anybody that got missed or skipped. And then, of course, we have that 3 o'clock walkthrough on using the appointments feature in general. You're welcome to attend that. I'm sure that'll clear up any other questions you might have. So we're going to just jump right on into loading in the inspection services now. We've got our agreements in the dashboard. We've pulled them from the software. We started from scratch, whatever we wanted to do there. Now we need to have our actual service items. That's so that we can request a payment when we schedule an appointment. It's so that we can let them know, hey, this is what you asked for. It's so that we can load those services into an agreement. A lot of you have agreements that like to list the services being performed. All good reasons to need to load your services. So if you've never used the appointments feature in your software before, you'll see the calendar link right under appointments in the main menu here on the left. We'll have a start here next to it. Either way, you can go into your calendar and take a look. If you've never used it, you'll have import or create services right here straight from your calendar. Okay? If you have used services before, maybe you were looking at this months ago and then you kind of got bored and you decided recently you're going to come back to it and start using it again, or whatever reason there may be, you might already have services. If you have services and you used boilerplate services like sample services and you don't want them there anymore, you can call our support team. We can wipe them out for you so you can start from scratch. You don't have to, but if you want that, we can do it. The number for our support team is 828-254-2030. Again, support team is 828-254-2030. We can wipe out your services and let you start over again if you need that. If you do have services and you don't want to start over, but you're here for a refresher, or you need to import more or whatever it is, you can also find this stuff under inspection services, the link here on the left under the appointment submenu. We're going to get to the same place either way. Okay, so calendar if you've never used it, inspection services, doesn't matter what you click on, we're all going to get to this page in the end. So there are several ways, again, to set up your inspection services. You can import them directly from your HomeGauge software. Maybe you've been using our software for years and you've gone through under miscellaneous in the invoice tab and you've set up every one of your services. If that's the case, you can bring them straight in to your dashboard from your software. You don't have to start over again. You can also use default services. So by default services, we mean the stuff that we normally start you off with in the software before you go in and you modify. If you just want something to start from or you just want something to play with for now, you can do that. As I said, we can always take them out later for you, or you can just modify them and use them as kind of a skeleton to build from. You can also create services from scratch. So again, I'm going to start with importing the services directly from your software. Most of you probably have already got that stuff set up forever ago and you don't want to do it again. So we'll start with that. If you're following along, just click this second little button here, import the services from your HomeGauge desktop software. No matter what you choose, you're going to see all this fun text come up. It's going to ask you, what's the estimated time required for these services that you're importing? Obviously, each service takes a different amount of time. What we're looking for is maybe an average. How long does it normally take you to do a home inspection? And you do have to put that in minutes. So we'll go with 2 hours to start from. You guys are going to edit these later and tweak them and have them all kind of have their own time, but we want to give you a base to start from. So I'm going to start with 120 minutes. You guys, whatever kind of works for you there, it's also editable after the fact. After you do that, this is going to be a lot like importing your agreement. We're going to choose File. So we'll hit the Choose File button. You'll notice some of this text has file paths for you, just like the agreements did. But choose File. That's going to open up your File Explorer, right? Most of you will find your data folder under Documents and then HomeGauge. And now we're not even looking for a folder. Now all you need to find in your HomeGauge folder is invoice.csv. This is the file that you need to pull in the services that are already loaded into your HomeGauge software so that you can use them with the appointments feature on your dashboard. They don't naturally live there. Your software is absolutely not web-based, so they're not sharing information back and forth. You do have to do it on purpose, but we tried to make it as easy as we could. Choose invoice.csv, hit open. You'll see that file name coming up here next to the Choose File button. If you pick the wrong thing, you see the wrong name here, hit Choose File again, pick the right thing next time. All right, after that, you're going to import from HomeGauge. And then you'll see a list of all of your services coming up. So just as an aside, you guys that decided to start with the default services, this is probably exactly what you're going to see. Other than my little new service guy down here, because the software that I'm using to show you guys this stuff is just fresh and new. It's not been modified or changed really. So that's the same as the default services. You guys that have been loading your invoice items for a long time and have been tweaking that and modifying it over the years, you'll see your own stuff here. You'll notice that you have some options. This little guy up top, if you've never used it before, is encouraging you to go ahead and try create a new appointment. We're actually going to do that at our 3 p.m. webinar. Right now we're just focused on getting everything set up. So I'm going to show you some of the other options. If you've already created an appointment before, you won't actually see this little button. It'll look like this. So you'll notice you can actually start a whole new service here at the top. If you brought all your service items in and there's one that's missing, or you forgot to add that one before, or maybe it's been a couple months and maybe you're just starting to offer radon tests or whatever it is, you can hit new service and that'll let you create a whole new service. So you'll have your service name, your description. You can put your time required here. It can be 0 if you want it to be. Just know that the appointments feature will actually attempt to gauge how long your appointment should last based off the time that you've put in for these services. So if you go through and you put everything in as 0, you're going to be gauging your own end time because the software will not know how long you're going to be out there. It's just meant to make your life easier. You can use it or not. It's up to you. You can allow quantity for those of you that charge by the square foot over a certain amount, something like that. You can do that here. Here's where your pricing goes. If you're in a state that taxes a service, you can put your tax rate in here and it'll figure it out for you. All kinds of fun stuff. We're actually going to come back to this page here in a minute, so I'm going to go back to our services page. You can also start a new service group from this page. And again, we got back to this page by choosing inspection services under appointments. And this is what it looks like. If you start a new service group, you can give it a name. So maybe we do something like discounts in our group. It'll make it a little easier if you have a whole lot of items. You perform a lot of services, or you just have a long invoice list, whatever it is. You can group these things up. So you can do maybe ancillary services, discounts, additional, whatever you wanted to call all the different groups you can choose on your own. So you can give it a group name. You can give it a description if you want. It's not required. You can even go through your current services and move over the ones that need to go in that other group. So I can move my discount over here, right? Save group. When I do that, now I have my main services here, and then I have a whole other little group, and there's my discounts here at the bottom. So you can do that. You can actually click and drag to move this stuff around as well. It doesn't work very well on this particular screen for me, but if you wanted to reorder something, you can just click and pull it around, put it wherever you'd like. So that's one way to do it, or you can just go manually click and choose where it belongs. And again, we talked a little bit about that estimated time and how you'd have to modify that later. So I'm going to show you how to modify a service item. So to do that, it's actually pretty simple. Just choose your service item name and you click right on the name of your service and it'll come open with the edit screen. So you can change the name here top, add a description, allow quantity if you need to. Here's where you change your time. So maybe it takes me less time for under 1,000 square feet. I can modify that here. Same stuff we've kind of already looked at. Your fee is here, your tax rate. Now that we have service groups, I can choose what group I want this particular item to go in, right? I can just select the group that this should live in. If I have multiple inspectors, I can choose who can perform the service. So there are definitely some multi-inspector companies out there that have some guys that are able to perform a radon inspection or a pest inspection or mold inspection, and some guys that aren't, right? They're not certified yet. So you can choose, if you're in a service like that, who's allowed to do this. That way, if maybe you've got a new person working the front desk or whoever's scheduling your appointments, if they choose that service and they try to book a different inspector that maybe is not qualified to do that service, they'll get a big giant warning message. Hey, this guy can't do that. So you can opt that in if you want. You can also choose which agreements are required for the service. So maybe just my regular agreement, since this is just a up to 1,000 square foot home inspection, right? Once you're done editing, just choose save, and your saves will be kept there. You can do that for all of these guys. Again, you can add whole new inspection items. Discounts are a little bit more fun. I'll show you how I tackle maybe like a percentage discount, something like that, if I wanted to do that with this system. I'd give it a name, and I would allow quantity, and I would make my fee a negative one so that it's a discount, right? So I'm going to make it minus $1. Doesn't take any time or anything. I'll put it in the service group discounts, and I'll save service. You guys will see this a little bit later, but when I go choose my service, if I want to just give somebody $30 off their inspection for whatever reason, I would put a quantity of 30 in, and that guy would have $30 off because I've set the service up like that. So that's just kind of a nice little trick. You can do lots of stuff with importing your services. I'm going to take a pause, and we're going to answer any questions that have come up, and then we'll wrap up this particular webinar, and we'll get ready for our 3 p.m. using appointments with HomeGauge services. So brief pause while we read any questions, and then we'll be right back. So I do have a question from Diana. Is there a way to leave the pre-filled fee blank? Our pricing is contingent on distance, age, etc., so I always have to change manually. So Diana, what I would say is to do something like the little trick I just showed you for the discount with the quantities. You can certainly choose it that way. So for that question, I would have a service that was just maybe called home inspection or whatever you wanted to call it. And instead of a big long period of time, I would maybe put allow quantity, square foot, mileage, whatever you wanted to say there. You don't even have to type anything under quantity descriptor. And maybe I'd set my fee at $1 or $50, or if you use different increments, it's up to you. You can give it a time required. If you're going to do that and you're using the quantity thing, make it a really small period of time. You don't want to charge a minute $1. That's going to be a long appointment. But you could maybe make it a portion of a minute, something like that. Leave it at $1. Save your service. Now when I go in and I want to book this service, I'll just put, if it's going to be $300 for this particular home inspection, I'll put a quantity of 300 and then I'll get my 300. That's how I would handle something like that. So, yeah. We'll pause a little bit longer here, make sure we don't have any follow-up questions or additional questions. So it doesn't look like we currently have any additional questions, and I know a lot of you are going to be attending that 3 p.m. webinar where we get kind of in depth with appointments and actually create some appointments, things like that. Real quick before I let you guys go though, I'll show you some stuff that's really maybe not so much dependent on appointments. For you guys that don't want to use that but did want to have all this stuff loaded, there's still a helpful reason for that. You don't have to necessarily schedule an appointment to add an agreement or request a payment. This is what your dashboard looks like when you're on the main page. You can see I've got some samples here. If I wanted to add an agreement after the fact for any reason, maybe you're going out to do a reinspection and you needed to add a reinspection agreement, I can hit add agreement. And it'll take me into what looks like an appointment, but it's not, where I make sure that my property address is right, maybe my services are all correct. Diane, I'll show you that. Quantity now. I'm going to charge maybe $150 for my reinspection, right? So here it is, $150. I can choose my agreement. And then, if I need to add customers, I can. We're going to look at this a lot more in depth a little bit later on, but it makes it pretty easy on you if you already have something loaded. Then I just hit next step and I can add my agreement. So you can see on this page, and we're going to look at this again more in depth down the line here, but you can allow your real estate representative to view the agreement if you want. We default it to no. We found that most home inspectors don't really want to share that with the realtors. There's not a really great reason for it. So we default it to no. You can switch it to yes if you do want to share with them. There are always some different scenarios where maybe there is a reason. So we changed that. And then you can see the actual agreement down below here. So here's the note. Here's the agreement text. You can type right in here. Maybe there's something that you want to reiterate for one certain customer, or just something you need to add to your current agreement for this particular scenario. You can do that on this page. Once you hit create agreement documents, it'll take you to where you can send them a message that says, hey, sign this agreement. You can or you can't. It's up to you. But now we've added an agreement. See? So that's a pretty quick little way to add something after the fact if you needed to. You'll notice because I added services, it also added the amount due. You can do this the other way around. You can go into request payment and you can request a new payment. So I can just add money right here if I want to. And I can require payment before they can view documents. Because I already had $150 on there, it's not going to change that to $300. It's going to add that $300 I just requested. Now I'm requesting $450. So if you ever wanted to edit what kind of amount due you want, you would actually choose to edit appointment, even if you're not using the appointments feature, because a lot of this piggybacks right off of that. So if I wanted to change that, I'd come in here and I could modify from here. So I took that 150 off. I'll hit schedule. And now it'll ask for the 300. That's what I typed in before. You can also just completely delete these right from this page. A good thing to remember is this stuff is all links. It'll all take you to where you can edit or modify. So when you see agreement not signed, and maybe somebody signed an agreement in person on a piece of paper, instead of doing it electronically, you can click that. It's a link, and you can change to agreed. Right? We can say, yeah, they did actually sign that. Okay. Or if you had somebody pay you cash, which is great for their inspection, you can come into where it's saying there's an amount due and you can record that they paid you. You can choose how. You can add a note. Hit record, and then suddenly they don't owe you any money anymore. And when they get in and they're looking at their reports and stuff like that, they can actually see that you recorded that payment. They can see that you've recorded that they signed their agreement. You can keep up with all that stuff. It's just a way to have a little more control. So definitely, if you're using the appointments feature, you don't even really need these links so much. You're going to do all of this stuff kind of in one go, but I did want you to see that you don't necessarily have to use the appointments feature to take advantage of the fact that you have your agreements loaded into your dashboard, you've loaded your services. They can be helpful for you in many areas. So just a quick pause for any more questions that we might have. I have recorded this, so if anybody needs to go back later and look it up, we'll have it on our channel on YouTube. It'll just HomeGauge, and this one will be called Setup. Loading your agreements and services for use with the HomeGauge dashboard. I'll go ahead and stop the recording now, but I will hang out for a few more minutes just to make sure we don't have any more questions. And then if you guys missed it, the link for registration for our 3 p.m. walkthrough on using the appointments feature is in the chat function of your webinar toolbar. And I'll be seeing you again real soon. So I'm going to pause briefly for some questions, and we'll see if we have anybody else.